Out with the old, in with the new, or at least in with the returning. Roster turnover. We'll get you all caught up on today's Locked On Reds.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, I'm Jeff, he's Steve, and on today's Locked On Reds podcast that is brought to you by FanDuel. By the way, new users can place a $5 wager, and if it wins, you'll get $150 in bonus bets. Head on over to FanDuel.com right now. But later bit on, I will be joined by JD Haffron from Locked On Cardinals to talk about what is real from the doubleheader that happened on Saturday, and moving forward, what can we trust between the Reds and the Cardinals? In just a few minutes, we will discuss the matchup in Flushing, Queens, as Nolan, McLean, and Sal Stewart get ready to do battle, two favorites in the National League Rookie of the Year campaign. But we will begin with all of the roster turnover, all the movements with the Cincinnati Reds roster, and why the most important one is getting back a Eugenio Suarez. And quite frankly, Steve, I think it was a little bit of getting him back, addition by addition, and sending Ke'Bryan Hayes to the IL with back problems, addition by subtraction.
Yeah, I'm not sure which of those two moves were bigger. Maybe this is how Nick Krall finally found a way to get Tito to stop playing Ke'Bryan Hayes, was to just, ask Ke'Bryan, your back hurts a little bit, right? and get him out of there. Look, Gino coming back, and getting Ke'Bryan Hayes out of this lineup gives flexibility to Tito to move other guys around and get a much better offensive product into the lineup. Now, it's going to take a little bit of time for the new lineup to gel and do things. The second game of the doubleheader, certainly they scored some runs. So you see that Eugenio Suarez coming back is a big boost for this team. It's a big boost for this lineup. It's a big threat now that you can pencil in somewhere around the 4, 5, 6 spot in the lineup, depending on what Tito wants to do with the juggling, and have another power bat available to you. I think that there's a lot of power left in Gino's bat, and I look forward to seeing it back in the Major League lineup.
Yeah, it's key to get him back, and I love, too, the fact that, first game back, he plays third base. And with Ke'Bryan Hayes not in the lineup, you now basically have two third basemen with Gino and with Sal, and then I think very, very little we see Spencer Steer at third base as well, but that's how that situation is going to look. On top of that move, though, and the boost that will be to the lineup, was you could almost say he's back, but it's the addition of Caleb Ferguson to the bullpen. They activated him off of the injured list on Sunday before Sunday's game that never happened. And they sent Connor Phillips down to AAA. And quite frankly, I think this is going to be a very important move, especially after yet another blow up from Tony Santillan. This bullpen needs an injection of life. And Caleb Ferguson was brought in the offseason to do that, but certainly now at this point that he's healthy and ready to go, we're looking to him to really make that happen.
Yeah, something had to happen with Connor Phillips. I sent a text to our group chat before the move was made that they got to get him out of here. They got to get him to AAA. They've got to let him go figure it out. Connor Phillips has always been wildly inconsistent, but what we know is when he was on and when his stuff was on, he was really good. The problem is you just never knew which Connor Phillips you were going to get from outing to outing, from inning to inning, from at-bat to at-bat. It could change. It could turn on a dime. And you can't have that in your bullpen. You certainly can't have that in high-leverage situations. Now, this is a player that this season was leading the majors in appearances. He was getting his opportunities. He was getting his chances. And he just really couldn't get it done. That walk rate was absolutely unacceptable. So they had to send him out. They had to get him out of here and let him go try and figure things out. The timing of Caleb Ferguson is interesting. In limited rehab appearances down in the minor leagues, he didn't look good. I was kind of hoping that he would have enough time to at least get in a groove and build some confidence before jumping back onto the Major League roster. Circumstances did not allow for that. So what's Caleb Ferguson going to be like? We don't know. We haven't seen him pitch for the Reds yet this year. So I hope that he can be that, pun intended, shot in the arm that the Reds need out in the bullpen in order to right whatever the hell it is that's been going on in May, because it has got to stop. They have got to listen, I don't expect them to get back to how they pitched in April right away. I mean, I do agree with the analysis from people that were like, these guys are pitching over their heads. This is not who they're going to be. I agree. They were pitching really, really well, but they're not this bad either. I need them to get back to that somewhere in the middle, good bullpen that we know they can be. And I do think Caleb Ferguson helps make that happen.
Well, I think to explain that even a little bit more, I don't necessarily know, like, it was like a Scooby-Doo situation and somebody pulled the mask off of the Reds bullpen and they're like, we knew it. It's a joke. But I think it was a little bit of, they hit a bit of a slump at the same time that they realized you're throwing a lot of innings because the starting pitchers are just not giving you the length that you need. And so everything when it came to a slump and fatigue kind of just combined into this Voltron of inefficiency. When it comes to anybody that came out of that bullpen door right now.
God help us if that becomes a Netflix series, Voltron of inefficiency. I don't even know what that looks like.
I don't know that I don't think it's a Netflix series. I think that's an Apple TV series. But no, I think that ultimately, like, when you look at this bullpen, it needs any help that it can get. And I think an underrated move that the Reds made too, not necessarily the calling up of Zach Maxwell, but thankfully, sending Jose Franco down to Louisville. They're going to stretch him out to be a starting pitcher, and we can add him back into the depth chart like he should have been for the starting rotation. And then, of course, the return of Chase Petty as well. He was the extra man, got the start on Saturday. Like, those two things, I think, will help the starting rotation as we move along. It sort of feels like, Steve, the picture of this starting rotation is beginning to come into focus just a smidge better.
What do you think on a time frame for Jose Franco? 3 to 4 starts to stretch him out where they need him to be?
I think probably 5 to 6. Yeah. I'd say 5 or 6. Because I think his last start before he was brought up to the majors, I think he threw like 47 pitches. So he hasn't yet really hit the starting pitcher number, even of the lower end that I would like to see. Like Tito always said, well, we want our guys with 100 pitches breaking out of camp.
Yeah, that's not
I would even just like if he gets 80 at this point, like just get him to that number.
You mentioned Chase Petty coming up as the extra man getting the start.
Yes.
And kind of effectively the Reds were skipping Brady Singer, something that I talked about a couple shows back, and you and I were kind of on the same page that is something the Reds should figure out how to do. Given extra days off,
supposed to pitch on Sunday.
Given extra days off now with the weather, and given the way this has come up, I would love to see them skip his next turn also. The only way that I can figure out for them to do that, though, is they're going to have to come up with some kind of phantom IL stint for him. The schedule is not going to necessarily allow them to skip him without calling somebody up. So I would love to see Chase Petty get another turn, is what I'm saying.
Well, and Chase Petty was only here because he was the extra man, and the rule on the extra man is they can be up for the doubleheader and go back down to Louisville the next day, and they don't have to use a call up or an option or anything like that. So they would have to make a call up and put Singer on the IL. But I'm kind of with you, and I thought that meant they were just going to skip him. So when I saw him on the probable starter list for Sunday, I was like, really? That's what we're doing in this rubber match here? But I think what happened was Tito was playing a game of chicken with Mother Nature, and he picked correctly by saying, yeah, Brady Singer is going to start on Sunday. And so now we have a nice little setup here, as long as Nick Lodolo can pitch well enough, which we'll talk about here in just a moment, that the Reds have Nick Lodolo, Chase Burns, and Andrew Rabbit pitching against the Mets coming up here for the next couple of days. But ultimately, I think that the Reds –
they have an off day. They have an off day on Thursday. So if you throw those 3 guys and you have the off day on Thursday, could they skip Brady Singer this week? I think they could. I think they could skip Brady Singer this week.
Because that would be Paddock. Then you would start on Friday?
Right. Start Paddock on Friday, having skipped Brady Singer, and go back around to the 3 that you're throwing in the 3-game series versus the Mets, and skip a Brady Singer turn. I think that's what they should do. I don't think Brady Singer should pitch this week.
Well, because but then Saturday's game, would that be 5 day? I cannot.
That would be 5 days
from
So
Monday.
it would be 5 days from Monday. So they would be on
So you
full
go
rest.
Paddock, Lodolo, Burns.
Yes. Yeah.
In the weekend.
Yep.
I'd be okay with that. Like, you could live with that, because it feels like there's something up with Brady Singer's game, and hopefully they can work through it in the bullpen sessions. But I know this, Steve, the roster makes a little bit more sense with all the different turnovers that's been happening here recently.
Yeah. We talked about the Mets coming up, 3-game series against the Mets in Flushing, which is very aptly named, I tell you. We're going to talk about that 3-game series in battles between the potential Rookie of the Year candidates here in this 3-game series coming up next.
It's Memorial Day, which is basically baseball's holiday. Like, baseball runs this holiday, and the Reds are in New York to face the Mets. And this is a very interesting matchup, because you got Sal Stewart going up against Nolan McLean, two guys who are favorites to win the NL Rookie of the Year. But I'm looking specifically at this game because the Reds' total runs over under is set at 3.5. Going up against Nolan McLean in this bullpen, kind of feel like the Reds are going to score more than that. I really hope Nick Lodolo pitches well enough to support that. I'm not willing to go crazy and place any kind of money on that, but I feel like the Reds lineup is going to do its job, and they're going to score over 3.5, which actually the odds on that right now are plus 106. So you put $10 on there, you'll get almost $11 if that happens. That's all over at FanDuel right now. Check out FanDuel today. Plus, new users can place a $5 wager, and if it wins, you'll get $150 in bonus bets. Shout out to the NBA playoffs for that one. That's all over at FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game.
What? You're not doing dollars on Dolo? Oh, ye of little faith. Ye
Not yet.
of little
Not yet.
faith.
I'll tell you why.
Coward. Straight cowardice. Listen, you already live this team every single day. Thanks for being an everydayer. Thanks for helping make Locked On the #1 sports podcasting network in all the land. You can elevate your game. Join the Everydayer Club at lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer. $5 a month, $50 a year. You're going to get ad-free Locked On Reds over in the audio feed. You're going to get access to an exclusive Discord server, not just Reds, every single show, every single team, every single host in there talking ball all the time. Great advantage to being an everydayer. Again, the link for that is down in the show description. All right, Jeff, the Reds are heading to New York to play a Mets team that on paper should be battling the Dodgers for the best record in baseball. But this is why we play the games, because the Mets are not anywhere near as good as some of these other teams. So looking at this matchup, this is going to be a fun one. This is going to be a fun one for the battle of the National League Rookie of the Years going at each other in this game. This is a series where the Reds can kind of get right a little bit. I think going in and winning 2 out of 3, not very big of an ask right now facing this Mets team. So I like where this is falling for the Reds on the schedule. Now, they, of course, have to go and execute and do things, but this is not as lopsided of a matchup as one would have thought looking at this series back in February.
No, and I want everyone to hear us on this, because you're probably thinking, how on earth could you guys say this about the Mets? Their payroll is double, maybe even triple. I forget what the number is, but it's a lot more than what the Cincinnati Reds is. They're bad. All right. Like, right now, they're playing bad baseball, and maybe they get it all together. Let's not have the Reds be the reason that happens. Reds need to at least win 2 out of 3 in this series. They're set up well to do it. This is the pitching matchups that I talked about against Philadelphia, where you're not facing the marquee guys. Nolan McLean is the marquee guy when you're talking about the Mets lineup, or the Mets starting rotation. But Tuesday and Wednesday is TBD. And we know how those lefties go against the Reds, but as it stands right now, we don't know who's pitching for the Mets. So I think that the Reds have a really good chance to win 2 out of 3 in this series, especially if they win this first one. And the interesting part about this matchup here, Steve, and I'm talking specifically about when Sal Stewart's at the plate. At least according to our friends over at FanDuel right now, Sal Stewart is plus 260 to win the National League Rookie of the Year. Nolan McLean is plus 450. Now, this is a tight race. FanDuel has J.J. Weatherholt currently at 2-1, Sal Stewart plus 260, Connor Griffin plus 280, Nolan McLean plus 450. I think there's a little bit of hype that is completely muddying the waters here, and I think that Sal's got to be on top right now of all this group. But Nolan McLean's not that far behind because he's been pitching pretty well. And the thing that I worry about the most with this matchup is Nolan McLean loves throwing the sinking fastball, and that is the worst type of fastball for this Reds lineup right now. They struggle mightily against the sinker. Now, the difference with this is Nolan McLean isn't necessarily looking for weak contact. He is pitching for more strikeouts, but he's done a pretty good job of it. And in his ERA that is currently 3.5, there's actually some numbers that say he's getting a little unlucky by that. And if you'll watch any highlights or TikTok videos or anything about the New York Mets trying to field a baseball right now, you know why. They're bad at that. And so hopefully the Reds can take advantage of that. But when it comes to this matchup, man, I'm going to be watching closely when Sal's at the plate, because this is a little bit of a chance for him to get in front of the voters and be like, yo, you think this guy's good? What about me?
I like where Sal's at in this right now. Obviously he started the season super hot, going like gangbusters. He tailed off. He had a little bit of a slump. He's been battling back out of that. 7 hits in his last 5 games. He comes into this series looking as he has righted the ship just a little bit, looking like he's getting back, on that game. He's got a home run in that 5-game stretch. He's looked really good, defensively. He's looked really good, really comfortable in the batter's box. I like what we're seeing from him. I like how he matches up right now. I like that he's got more protection in the lineup with Suarez back with this team, back in the lineup. You can structure these lineups so that everybody has a little bit of protection now, and no one person is being asked to carry this team. Look, Sal has amassed over 1 in WAR, according to Baseball Reference right now. He's 1.1. He's the number 2 offensive player on the team behind Elly De La Cruz, number 3 overall, also behind Chase Burns. So that's pretty good company. When the top 3 WAR guys on this team are Chase Burns, Elly De La Cruz, and Sal Stewart, Sal's doing something right. And I think that's going to continue. I think this is a great opportunity for Sal to be in a big market audience, to have everybody kind of put eyes on him, probably some of them for the first time this season, and get to see what Sal is all about. And I think as long as he performs the way he has been recently, the way that we know he can, they're going to be won over very quickly, because it doesn't take very much of watching Sal Stewart to recognize that he is the real deal and that he is a problem if you're coming at it from an opposing team perspective. You've got to watch out for him, and you find that out very quickly as long as he's on fire.
Now, on the converse side of this, Nick Lodolo is going up against this Mets lineup that on paper should be pretty good. Mets are not very good of a lineup, though, overall. You got Juan Soto, of course, that you got to worry about, but there's a lot of other question marks on this team. And with the way that Nick Lodolo pitched in his last start, I did see shades of who Nick Lodolo is, albeit he still had 5 walks, still didn't look all that sharp. I'm really hoping he can take that next step with this start, because like you mentioned, you say not putting any dollars on Dolo. No, not right now. That would feel like, I don't know, that would feel like popping open a hot dog package and just going to town on the hot dogs without cooking them right now. I just wouldn't feel good about that at all. And I think it would leave me with a stomachache afterward. But I think ultimately we're getting there with Nick Lodolo. And if we get there for Memorial Day, then they've got a really good shot to win this series. Maybe, dare I say, going to New York and sweep them.
Lodolo is a case where could he? Maybe. Will he? I don't know. It's all about that breaking pitch. It's about the comfort that he has throwing that pitch, it being effective. He lives and dies by that back foot breaker. We know what he looks like when he's able to deliver that pitch. His last 3 starts, Jeff, you look at what he's done when he's gone out there. It's not been world beater type stuff. First start 5 2/3, second start 4 innings, last start 5 1/3. But he's given up way too much contact, way too many runs. He's just not really been dominating for any particularly long stretch of any of those starts. And that's really the concern. He's got to bring the consistency. Now, I don't know what's happening with that breaking pitch. I don't know if he is changing grips and throwing it with different grips at different times, trying to limit that blister, or if it's a matter of he's still in quasi spring training mode, trying to get a feel for it. I don't know. If you listen to him talk, he'll tell you that it's just, he's continuing to evolve. He's continuing to get a feel for it. He's continuing to get better and working, and, you know, all of the things that these pitchers say when you talk to him after a start. But he really, truly lacks the consistency that he needs with that pitch. And he needs that pitch. We know what Nick Lodolo looks like without that pitch. And that's not a guy that you want to run out there every fifth day. He needs to get it under control. He needs to be able to deliver it consistently. And he needs to have the opposing hitters know that he can deliver that pitch consistently. Otherwise, they're just going to sit back and wait and get a fastball or a walk.
Now, the weird thing about Nick Lodolo right now, it seems as though he is like working on his changeup. And I get it if this were spring training and he was doing that, but it ain't. Like right now, he's throwing his changeup more than he's throwing any other pitch. And to his credit, he's still doing the thing where the 4 pitches that he throws, he's throwing all of them at least 21% of the time. So it's not as if he's just doing too much with one pitch and not enough with the others. But the order's about flipped right now, where the changeup's being thrown the most. Last year, he threw the changeup the least. So I think that there's something there. It feels calculated, but the changeup, it seems like it could be better. Right now, it's kind of getting clobbered. There's not a lot of contact, but when there is contact, it's being hit for extra bases. So I hope that either starts to become a focus and it actually starts working, or the curveball takes over like it should, because that's his thing. That's the breaking ball. That's what he needs. All I know is Reds got to kick the Mets while they're down. Let's not let the Mets get right. But I know this, Steve, looking at the doubleheader from Saturday, because that's all it was. We didn't really get a series. But the doubleheader from Saturday, there were a couple of performances that are real and that you can believe. And unfortunately, at least on the Cardinals side of things, Jordan Walker is believable. Well, it was a rainy weekend at Great American Ballpark, and we only got 2 games in out of 3 and split those 2 games. So let's talk about some guys on each team that look real right now. JD Haffron joining me from Locked On Cardinals. I'm Jeff Carr, Locked On Reds. And JD, like, I know you were down at the ballpark for both games, and so you saw a beat down in game 1. And then you saw the Reds actually survive in game 2, which I thought they were going to give a beat down at least early on. And then Jordan Walker decided to hit a home run. Let's start with him. Like, what's up with Jordan Walker? Is he for real? Like, is this who he is?
It certainly seems like it. We're getting ready to hit June, and things have not cooled off all that much. And what was something that I was really excited to see about him is like when he would finally, because he got off to that crazy hot start. Remember, he was hitting home runs every day. You know, it was like 6 games in a row. It was something nuts. And everybody, you know how baseball season is. Everybody cools off eventually. How do you rebound from that? Can you come back from that? Or are you going to drift away and go back into your bad habits again and be the guy that we had seen over the last couple of years? And that didn't happen. When he cooled off, everything, you know, he went down for 5-6 days where, you know, things were a little tough, and he started chasing those outside pitches again like he used to. And then he was able to reel it back in. He got more selective at the plate. And since that time, he's taken off once again. Since that point when he was a little colder, is back to hitting 300, 20-something. Like, he's been that guy. And it appears right now that the Cardinals finally have found their superstar. It's something that they haven't had in quite some time, and been a few years. That one guy that they can hang their hat on, go, we got that guy. He is a dude. And it looks like they finally got that guy at age 24, which is pretty exciting.
He and Ellie are right there, at least according to Fangraphs, when it comes to WAR. And that's kind of been one of the more interesting things for me to watch with the Cardinals coming up, is that Walker is the guy that, like, for the first couple of years didn't really go. But like you mentioned, he's 24. Like, when you say first couple of years, yeah, dude's still like just a kid. Same deal with Ellie. And honestly, for me with the Reds, like, same with Sal, but I buy everything that Sal is doing right now, because Sal did go through that little bit of a dry spell. And as you know, he killed it in the month of April. The month of May began. First 15 games of April, he had $150. But even during that stretch, he was still scoring some runs, stealing some bases, doing the little things outside of batting average and on base percentage to help the team go. And then he picked it right back up again. And so I buy into Sal Stewart and Ellie De La Cruz right now. And I really feel like those guys, and you saw it in game one for sure because the lineup was shut down as a whole, except for the Nate Lowe bomb.
Which was a missile. Oh
Andre
my God.
That was a missile. It was for sure. And I don't know why couldn't he impart that to the rest of the lineup? Because Andre Palante continued his magic that he has over this lineup. My gosh, they cannot hit it.
Yeah. Because I was with a group of Reds fans at the game, and they're talking about Palante again, and I'm like, I know. I go, whatever reason, he's got this crazy voodoo at GABP and against the Reds. Against the Reds, he is one of the best pitchers in the National League, and then against everybody else, he's kind of meh. And I don't know what it is about his ability. I know he's a sinker baller, which is a good thing to be when you're pitching at Great American Ballpark. You got to keep the ball down. He didn't keep it down to low, and we saw that missile go over to right field. One of the hardest balls I've ever seen hit live in person. Like as soon as it hit, I was like, "Oh my!" I thought it was going to kill somebody out in right field. But after that moment, Palante settles in a little bit and was able to rattle off something like 12, 13 in a row, and he was masterful for whatever reason. He's been able to have the Reds' number over the years. And then, of course, on the other side, offensively, it was Brian Torres. After the Jordan Walker stuff, which the normal people, but then it was Torres who was making his major league debut, and he has one of those magical first games as a big leaguer where if Dunn doesn't rob him in right field on that one, I mean, we're talking possible cycle in his first game.
Yeah, and talk about a story too. Like 28 years old, getting the debut, and the debut that he had. Like it's one of them things that as a baseball fan, you watch these guys and you're just like, man, you stuck with it all through the minors, through your minor league career, and you finally get this chance and you just go like, I don't care what hat you're wearing. Like that's a really easy story to root for. And it was great to see. Like I wish he would have done it against the Pirates or the Brewers, but it was at least nice from a baseball fan perspective to see that.
Yeah, it was cool to be there in person to see something like that, to see maybe the greatest moment of one person's life happen in front of you. Like that's kind of a neat story there. His family was in from Puerto Rico. They were in the stands. And, I thought it was funny that Gino was toying with the ball when he got his first hit, was about to, he did a little joke where he was going to throw it back into the stands or something. Like, I like it. You could tell everybody was kind of rooting for him and thought it was a cool thing. And I think that's neat about the brotherhood of Major League Baseball, where they all kind of are aware of what's going on. And when that happened, it seemed like even some of the Reds guys were kind of like, that's pretty cool. Good for you, dude.
Yeah, that's a funny thing too, because like I think you hear some folks wish for an old school feel where like they wish for rivalries and stuff. It's like they're all human beings, and kind of like you mentioned, like somebody once said that they're just like, it's either your best day or someone else's best day and you're in it. So at least appreciate that for a moment. And it's like, yeah, it was Brian Torres' best day. Like that was a phenomenal thing to see for him. Speaking of guys who are having best days, at least for the moment right now, Blake Dunn is really kind of rolling. And I want to keep seeing more of him because he's kind of in that mold of what TJ Friedl has been for the Reds the last couple of years. And TJ Friedel's really struggled to begin this season. But that guy who just he plays hard every single play. He's super easy to root for. When you look at the stats, are you going to be that impressed? Probably not, but he's going to be that guy that endears himself to you. And some of the plays, I mean, the robbery of Torres in that one, and then being able, walk-off fielder's choice on the scorecard doesn't sound all that cool. But when you get the walk-off, you get the walk-off. And Blake Dunn was able to deliver that moment. So I want to see more of him as we go forward, because he's the guy the last couple of years we've seen little bits and pieces, and all the little bits and pieces have been super just not interesting. And now all of a sudden everything's starting to click for him.
Yeah, and it's, you get these guys with a little extra playing time, and it gives them a little more positivity, a little more, where they have confidence. We're like, you're not coming out of the lineup for a couple of days. This isn't just, an inning or two that you're playing and we're going to bench you. No, Dunn's done some good stuff in that doubleheader. Not only does that catch, but then the catch in the extra innings off of Herrera to keep it where it was a tie ball game in the top of the 11th inning before he comes in and he does his job. And what do we say about certain people? Not everybody's a superstar, but everybody's got to do their job. And Blake Dunn's job in that situation was just get the ball in play. Somehow, some way, figure out how to get that ball in play. make the Cardinals decide what they need to do. Are they going to try to turn 2? Are they going to try to go to home plate? And, there was a situation where they had the 5 infielders. And I was a little surprised they kept it that way after, the runner got on first, that they didn't step back and try to turn 2. But in that situation with as well as done runs, it was going to be really, really hard to turn 2 on him anyway. So it kind of all worked out for the Reds there. They were able to keep the Cardinals off the board in both extra inning frames, which is not an easy thing to do, especially after, losing a 5-1 lead at home. I mean, I'm sure you're like, oh gosh, here we go again with this bullpen, and able to come back and pull off the victory and hang on in front of that huge crowd at GABP. It was a great scene just all around. As a baseball fan, even though my team did not win, it was still just an exciting baseball game, well played, and I was thoroughly enjoyed. I'm glad the rain stayed away for one day this weekend. That way we were able to take in two good games. One of them obviously a little more exciting than the other one after the blowout in game 1, but I digress.
One day, it feels like at this point, 1 hour of rain-free weather feels just like a huge blessing. And now we're looking at 12 days away before the Reds head down to St. Louis for the next part of the season series. Of course, the makeup for the rainout on Sunday won't be played until August. A Monday afternoon, August 17th, 1:40
5
PM.
games in 4 days is how
There's going to be a lot of people there. A lot of people at the ballpark Monday afternoon at 1:40 p.m. on August 17th. Anyway, but I'm looking forward to the rest of the season series because I feel like these two teams are going to be all over it. And the rest of the division, really, it's just going to be a dogfight. The Reds have really put themselves behind the 8 ball early on, so hopefully they can kind of get back into it. 2-10. Your first 12 games in the division is not a good start. No matter how sideways you look at it.
Yeah, if we're learning anything too, you kind of look at the Cubs, man. 2 10-game winning streaks, and then they lose 7 in a row. So things get weird in the sport of baseball, man. And the key is to not. And you guys had your long losing streak already that knocked you down a few tiers. But I don't know. You got to be. If I'm a Reds fan right now, I'm not fully like upset about things. Obviously you're dealing with a lot of injuries, without the Hunter Green and the Nick Lodolos, and you don't have Pagan at the end of your bullpen and stuff. So there's been a lot for the Reds to deal with and overcome. Ellie's still doing his thing. Sal Stewart looks like the real deal. And one thing that you mentioned earlier with Sal too is that, he was having a tough month of May, but his mindset and the way he's going about, he shows maturity beyond his age, and you could just tell when there's a guy that's going to be a dog, right? And Sal Stewart looks like a dog.
That'll do it for us today here on the Locked On Reds podcast. Make sure that you follow us on your favorite app, whether it be here on YouTube or on your favorite audio platform. We will be breaking down the Reds' first game against the Mets and looking ahead to the series, or the rest of the series in Flushing, Queens on tomorrow's podcast. Make sure you check that out. Now, make sure if you're listening to go check out the Locked On MLB channel. 3 different shows giving you views from around the league that you won't get anywhere else, whether it's Sully, whether it's Back to the Bullpen with Mike Stanton and Brett Chansey, or it's Locked On MLB Game Night, watching every game every night so that you don't have to. Locked On MLB has you covered. But for Steve and myself, we've got the Reds covered because we are Locked On Reds every single day.
Dollars for Dolo. Coward. Jeez.
One more start. I like that, though. It should be like a hashtag or something. If anybody cares about hashtags.
It's like a GoFundMe. Or
that too.